This blog is coming to you from the Isle of Man, where I'm standing in front of one of the most important pieces of maritime heritage that the world has got, because this is the Peggy, built in the late 18th century. She is 230 years old. Yeah, think about it, 230 years old, probably built originally in 1789, rebuilt in 1802. And how does she come to us in this remarkable condition? Well, it's a strange story. She was built for a Mr. George Quayle of the Isle of Man, who was a prominent politician and businessman. He needed a boat, and he had the Peggy built. He used her for carrying produce to the mainland, or perhaps not produce, maybe high value goods, I suspect, because she's not very big. She's only 27 feet. And he also even did a spot of yachting in her. He actually took her to the mainland, hauled her overland, and took on the local lads on Windermere. It's not recorded how he did, but I suspect he might have done quite well, because looking at her, I think if she was well sailed, she'd be a bit of a flyer, actually. And he was certainly an enthusiast, so he might well have done that. He was also an inventor, and ahead of his time in many ways, because when Peggy was first built, she had centreboards, or at least 3 dagger boards that ran through the keel to beef up her lateral resistance. I don't think they were all that successful, because he rebuilt the boat in 1802, and when he rebuilt her, he blocked up the dagger board holes, and he added an extra strake, this one, to the top sides, because I think she was a bit wet before. I suspect actually that when he'd driven hard, he might have actually seen green water coming in over the gunwale. Very, very pretty the boat was before, but I think probably more seaworthy afterwards. Anyway, she was walled up in a cellar right by the harbour when Mr. Quayle, for one reason and another, had no further use for her. My friend Chris Weeks, who is the conservator on the Isle of Man, has been doing research into how long she was actually used. And it's absolutely fascinating what these guys do. They've worked their way into the original paint. The boat was found in 1935, I think, and the guys who found her saw her in a bit of a parlous state, as you can imagine, in a cellar, walled up beside the harbour. And they ripped into her with a bit of the old sandpaper, as any of us might have done, thinking, oh, we found an old boat, we'll cheer her up a bit. And they tore away so much of this vital evidence of what she was and where she was. But, you know, they were doing what they thought best at the time, and you can understand it. But Chris has found some original paint on her, has taken a flake and has analysed it, and has discovered that assuming the boat was painted perhaps every year, or maybe every 2 years, and we all know about wooden boats, don't we? That's the likelihood. Then he probably used her for about maybe 20 years. And after that, she was no longer of service to him, and he shut her away in this boathouse, and that was it. And she wasn't found until just before World War II. She sat there. After World War II, more work was done. She was actually lying on her side when she was found. They brought her upright. They did a little bit of restoration work to make her so that she could survive a bit longer. And it's only really when Chris has taken over that he's really got to grips with this amazing project to save her for the world. And she's now been moved. She's in a, well, we're in an industrial unit here. You can probably hear it echoing around me. But it's climate controlled, so she's safe for the time being, and we're working on her. My job is to look into the rig and see what the rig would have been in the old days, and that is just a fascinating thing. I could go on all day about this, but I'm going to show you some of the details so that I'd like to share them with you, because it's an amazing thing that we're seeing here. I'm going to come to the bow of the boat first, and you can see at least I hope you can, it's not very easy to see, is it? The lovely hollow shape, but let's have a look inside. Just look at that. You can't, there's a little bit of a plywood floor in there to stop people putting their feet through the bottom, but isn't that amazing? To think that that's 230 years since that was built, and the amazing condition that it's in. So as we look at the bow, we can see the gammon iron. Well, that shows us that she carried a bowsprit without any doubt at all. That's clearly original. looking inside, we can see, oops, let's just get back here. Yeah, we can see the fore thwart, the mast thwart. What a thing that is. On the top of it, you can see the heel iron for the bowsprit, that D-shaped hoop. Further back, we've got the clamp for the mast itself, for the foremast, right up in the bows of the ship, which indicates that she's probably shallop rigged. When you look at the proportions of where the foremast is and where the mainmast is, the mainsail's enormous, and that tells us that she was certainly a schooner and not a ketch. We also, it's pretty clear that she wasn't a lugger, because there's actually some surviving spars, and one of them is clearly a gaff, so no doubt about that. Coming further aft, we can see, here's the main mast. There's a tiny, actually that's the gaff I found that I've just stood in there. I did that to give me some idea of the rake of the mast. If I set back a bit, you can see the boat's sitting on her keel at the moment, so if we just tip it back a bit, that's probably about the rake of the mainmast, that little tiny spar you can see in there. And here is the strake that you can see that's painted a darker colour here. That's original paint, and it's some of that's been analysed. There's wonderful ironwork to see as well. Look at this. This is a chain plate, a shroud plate. It's just up with a cable tie here to keep it out of the way, but it's a beautiful hand forged thing, and the bolt that's holding it, I don't know whether this is going to focus that close up, probably not, but you can see this is a lovely hand forged thing, glorious. And well, it goes on and on. The shape of the boat's absolutely lovely. There's beautiful run aft. She's not very, here it is, look. She's not very deep, but she's clearly a sailing shape. And if you sailed her fast, I think her lateral resistance would have been pretty good. Like all these sort of boats, she needs to have way on to keep her moving. And if you try and point too high, she'll just go sideways and stop. But my word, with a great long boom like that, she's going to be a thrilling boat to sail. My hope is that one day they'll build a replica and I'll get to sail her without an engine, of course. Look at that run, no propeller messing that up. And that lovely paintwork still there from the stern with George's name on it. Well, look, I'm going to have to leave you there because I'm running out of battery. But it's great to share this with everybody. And there will be more, so don't lose faith. Thanks to Chris Weeks and to the people of the Isle of Man for this insight.